Sales teams are only as good as the leader that's taking them forward. So you need to give your team a specific number of units or a revenue metric that you need to attain, and then the why behind why that goal is important. Because if they understand why they're working towards a goal, then it motivates the salesperson to go out and achieve it. But you have to give them clear, measurable prescription of actions to take in order to accomplish that. Because without clear action, we end up with inaction.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
Mike, every week on the show, we aim to disrupt the way real estate agents and entrepreneurs think about their business in order to make them more profitable and productive. And this week, Mike, I want to disrupt the way you think about science. And no, not the 1.9 version of science. We don't need to have YouTube dock us for talking about the Rona. So what I want to instead talk about is the science of mass and velocity. I'm talking about momentum.
Okay.
What do you do in your business when momentum is stopped? It happens all the time in sports or in a marriage or especially in business. The more successful we are, the more we lose momentum. We identify a problem, then we go fix it, and then something else breaks that needs more of our attention. And then we make progress in business, and then life comes along and slows down the momentum or even puts your business on the brink. And so how do we get back on track when a business slows down or when the energy of the people is low? Any thoughts on how we could start to refocus that energy or some of the causes as to what even leads to that?
Well, I'm about bridging gaps and deltas. I think the very first thing is you have to be aware.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times we run our business and we're not holding people accountable and we're not tracking or we're not unaware of certain patterns. And we don't even know that we've lost momentum until it's too late.
Yeah.
So I think the key is being present and then identifying patterns.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect. It actually leads me into, the topic of identifying signs of when momentum is slowing or when momentum is often masquerading as a problem. And that's one of the challenges, I think, in having people identify momentum versus problems, because they oftentimes look the exact same way or they are the same thing.
Right.
The challenge for the business owner is how will you treat the problem versus how will you treat a lack of momentum? And those two things will get you two totally different outcomes. If you have a momentum problem, it oftentimes looks like a lack of engagement, a lack of progress, a lack of trust, a lack of consistency, or a lack of accomplishment.
Okay.
And so a lack of engagement, progress, trust, consistency, or accomplishment.
Okay.
The challenge, though, is how do you know when you have a problem that like a person or people are the problem or a system is the problem when you're not getting progress or consistency or accomplishment? And then how do you know when there's the difference in momentum?
So, to be honest with you, all the systems and the models that I run within like my organization, I've done. So they're tried and true, right?
Yeah.
So typically if it's not necessarily like the activity, it's something needs to be massaged. So you have to identify, okay, where is it being dropped? Is it being dropped? Or like, for example, we run a sales organization. So are your appointments down? Well, is that because you're not making enough phone calls, or is it because you're not converting those leads? So then being able to, that's typically the issue, right? So then you just have to identify, okay, are you doing the activities every day? Are you time blocking to do those? That's where I start. And if they're doing that, okay, let's have a conversation on the script. So it's about being able to identify what it is and then coaching to wherever the problem is.
I like to think about this from the perspective of sports, because all of our listeners have seen momentum show up in sports. And it's easy to identify when we see momentum in sporting events versus when we see momentum stall out in a business. And I think relating it back to sports gives us something that we're all really familiar with and being able to like distinguish the difference. And so I think about it in the sports perspective that a basketball team that goes on a 12-0 run where the team scores 12 points in a row, the players didn't change. The coach didn't change. The plays likely didn't change. The fundamentals of the game didn't change. The biggest difference was energy and engagement. Right. And that energy and engagement creates this compounding and cascading effect of momentum. And so what happens is everyone looks better. The coach looks better. The leadership team looks better. All the players look better. Everyone is performing at a higher capacity. Right. Because of momentum, and that's that focused energy. And so, to your point of having done it before, that gives you a pretty good perspective of whether it's possible. Right. And then I always want to know is, okay, then is the activity happening or not? Let's say that the answer, it doesn't, to some degree, it kind of doesn't matter because oftentimes we see it in sports where the outcome is a byproduct of momentum. The engagement and the energy of the collective is so strong and overpowering, and the crowd gets behind it. Yep. And then it propels the entire outcome to a totally different result. How do we create that in a business, though?
So you always use these sports analogies, or I use sports analogies, and right now you're using sports analogies. I try to make it a competition. Yeah. So I see my business much like sports, muscle memory. It's like shooting free throws. When you're an athlete and you need to practice shooting free throws, it's all about shooting free throws. I look at our activities, it's muscle memory. You're actually seeing the personification of systems and models when someone shoots a free throw. They do the exact same ritual every time, and that muscle memory elicits the same result. The best free throw shooters has a system of shooting free throws. And if you have that systems baked into your business, you will have a functioning business that produces the same results every time.
Yeah, and the hard part is that momentum is the job of a leader. Yeah. Right? At the end of the day, being a leader is about channeling and harnessing human capital. Yeah. And that human capital is just really an energy system, right? And so how do we manage the human energy system of the collective as a leader in order to drive the outcome that we seek? So
I dangle carrots versus using sticks. So what I do is I can identify, okay, we're not going on enough appointments. So then I will say, hey, $50 to the first person that sets an appointment. Or I see that I track our activities or our phone calls, and I see that we're not making phone calls. So then I'll say, hey, you guys, we're kind of we're light on phone calls. The first person that, makes the most appointments today gets $100. So I try to, and we have played a game about it. And so then that competition elicits, the result that I'm looking for.
And during the day, if you set that goal, let's say it's $100 for whoever sets the first appointment, what's your engagement look like? Like how active are you in ensuring that there's buy-in or enrollment in that goal?
Well, I have a report card that comes out every day. Yeah. Every day. I probably, well, not today, but every day. So it shows activities, appointments, and contracts for everybody on the team. So that is a perpetual competition. Nobody wants to be at the bottom of that report card. And then another thing is it gives them clarity because then I'll comment on that report card every day so they know that I'm looking at it.
That's right.
So there's an accountability there.
Yeah. And would you wait until the end of the day if you establish a contest to get engagement, or would you nudge them throughout the day to try to stoke that fire?
It's funny. I have an early bird because I want a time block and I want to get it out of the way. So normally when I get done making calls, I'll send a message, hey, you guys, congratulations for the early birds. This person made this amount of phone calls. This person made this amount of phone calls. So then I'm encouraging them to do the same, to mimic my behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're demonstrating by sharing proof of work essentially with the group, and that serves as a reminder of the activity of engagement. It also serves as a reminder that you're engaged in their outcome and that you're doing the activity, and you didn't just set an initiative this morning and then forget about it by this evening or an hour later or something.
I'm on the report card too.
Yeah.
So they're holding me accountable and I'm holding them accountable. And they know I'm running 2 businesses.
Yeah.
And so they know how busy I am. And so they know that I'm time blocking and I'm making my phone calls. And so there's no excuses. If I'm running 2 businesses, I'm more busy than all of y'all. And I'm still making my phone calls. Why did I make more phone calls than y'all?
Yeah. So what I heard you say is that you clarify the mission, right? You set the objective of something that's measurable and tangible that you want them to accomplish, because sales teams are only as good as the leader that's taking them forward. So you need to give your team a specific number of units or a revenue metric that you need to attain, and then the why behind why that goal is important. Because if they understand why they're working towards a goal, then it motivates the salesperson to go out and achieve it. But you have to give them clear, measurable prescription of actions to take in order to accomplish that. Because without clear action, we end up with inaction oftentimes, or we end up with the wrong action. And that's the thing that I think most leaders forget about, is you actually do have to give a prescription.
Yeah.
Because without it, you end up either with likely the wrong outcome or no action at all.
Nothing. Yeah, because this is the thing. We think that we're working and we think that we're trying because we're busy.
Yeah.
And just because you're busy, if it's not leading to a result, it doesn't really matter.
Or the result even that's rewarded potentially.
Yeah. So as long as you're busy with the right activity. So what I do is I get really clear and focused on what those activities are, and I set the expectation, and that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And if you do that, this should be the result. And then I hold them accountable to that result. Okay, why is it that we aren't here? And then I coach that up.
And one thing you can do to build momentum as well is that when you're giving those clear missional objectives or those actions, go small. If you're stuck or you're stalled out, if you've lost momentum in mid-flight, go back to fundamentals and basics. Start measuring wins differently. I think about along that same vein of sports analogy, and thinking that a football team should always return back to just winning 3-yard increments. The objective is winning the line of scrimmage to get 3 yards. Yeah. And that's because the team that gets 3 yards on every play can't be beaten. Yeah. And so if all you have to do is win the line of scrimmage in order to win 3 yards, and you are unstoppable. And yet most of us focus on the fancy big touchdowns, downfield play. That's right. Yeah. And so going small instead makes it to where we can measure the win differently. So then when I get 3 yards, I've accomplished the goal. I get that hit of dopamine, right? Then I'm getting another 3 yards, and that energy compounds and builds on itself. I want to start creating small, measurable wins that the team can accomplish that can compound if I'm trying to rebuild momentum. And then I want to focus the energy of the collective to follow the bright spots. I think about that if your child brings home a report card and there's 6 grades on this report card and there's 5 A's and 1 F. Yeah. Most people gravitate towards the F. And yet what we need to do is identify in our business, why did we get an A? If there's one outlier, or if there's one thing that's going really, really well, why is that one thing working disproportionately better than everything else? When we instead of focusing on the problems, we focus on the bright spots in the business, what we end up with is learning something about what's working well.
Yeah.
And so when I think about momentum, what we need really is a momentum plan before we get stalled out. We need to know when things are going really well, why.
Yeah.
What is it that's creating the outcome that we desire, so that if it ever stops, I know how to jumpstart it again.
Yeah. If you the biggest thing is if you rely on systems and models, that I guess it's by having like the routine that should carry you through. So like we give sports analogies. When a shooter stops hitting shots, what do they tell that shooter do? To shoot through it. To shoot through it. Keep shooting. Keep shooting. And so to me, that's what I rely on, is because I track my activities and I know how many activities. When I'm in a slump, I can always go back and I can see, okay, this month I did that, but then look, because I did the activities, a month later, I blew up because I just kept shooting. So I guess that's my answer to that.
You know, it's interesting because it makes me, your story makes me think of the bit that Tony Robbins talks about when he was coaching Andre Agassi. And Agassi went from, top 1-2 player in the world to like 200-ish, or, somewhere in that like triple digit ranking, from top of the food chain to basically barely still a pro on tour, and then went back to being a top 3 tennis player in the world after having some coaching with Tony Robbins, and I'm sure making some changes. But one of the things that they talked about that was the difference was they had Andre visualize focusing on the bright spots. And so they showed Andre videos of himself playing when he was number 1, and then when he was number 100, to demonstrate to him what he was doing really well when he was number 1 versus what was happening at number 100, and then visualize over and over and over through repetition what that swing looked like, what that swagger looked like when he was number 1, rather than trying to fix the problems when he had fallen to 100 plus. They went instead to, let's focus solely on what was going really well and figure out how to get back to there. Rather than course correct what got you to 100, let's instead go to where you were at 1. What's that?
What was it? What did they say?
I think confidence was one, if I remember correctly.
That's what I was going to say. Momentum gives you confidence.
That's right.
So this is the thing. When I have swagger, when I walk into a room and I know I'm killing it, I walk into a listing appointment and I have a certain cachet, I'm going to get this listing appointment, or I'm going to sign this agent up. Nobody's going to tell me any difference. And that's what momentum had. When I was on the football field long time ago, like that guy across, he was just an impediment in my way, right? And that dude was not going to stop me. And that's the difference, what momentum gives you.
It's interesting because it makes people look better than they are. I mean, I'm beating the death out of these sports analogies, but it makes me think of Jeremy Lin. When Jeremy Lin came in and just went on Linsanity, that was where momentum made a player look much better than they really are.
Right.
And so the difference is that confidence. It is that swagger, and it is the compounding benefit of being in the zone from a swagger standpoint, and then that builds on itself.
It's being emboldened. So I remember in high school, I'm from Marion High School. So Marion High School has a lot of state championships. I think they're number 1 or tied for number 1 and state championships for Indiana. So in the year that we went to state my senior year. So like, there's no way you're just going to walk onto that basketball team. They had a good team. So I remember I would like go and I would just play against like the people that weren't very good, and I could hit every shot. Pow, pow. I would crush them. But then as soon as I get and play with like it was all my confidence. Like now my shots aren't falling. Now I can't hit a free throw or a layup. And so when you are emboldened and you walk with a swagger, it's going to free you up.
The fact that you played with Zach Randolph, or at least Zach Randolph was
I did. I actually had to guard him. He was a freshman when I was a senior.
I mean, that didn't hurt. I mean, the fact that you couldn't hit shots against a
total trash compared to Zach.
I mean, he also was an NBA player.
Yeah. I did. I had to guard him. We were in gym class. I was a senior, and I had to guard him. I'm like, I'm the tallest dude on the team, and he totally killed me.
What is he? Is he probably what, 6'9", 6'10", probably? Yeah.
Dude, he's like a whole he looks like Shaq and I don't know, Spud Webb. That's
awesome. So 2-time All-Star player. So I mean, it's okay that you were trash. I get it. Then I think about, though, following kind of the same vein of analogies and thinking about building momentum for your business when things stall out. I think about how in sports, things are public and visible. And by that, I mean the scoreboard. And so we oftentimes see achievement and data or scoreboards visible, of course, in athletics. And that visibility also adds to the compounding energy effect of building momentum. And so in thinking about business, I look at it and say, okay, we need to break down a small goal and then make that target attainable and then track against it. It's the reason why you see in a manufacturing facility the sign that says we've gone this many days without an incident. And it's the reason why you could have in your business, Michael, we've gone this many days with a pending, right? It's like you could build that streak momentum of trying to create the outcome that you seek by somewhat gamifying it, but more importantly, making it visible. So there's that secondary reminder in the environment as to what's most important and what's also attainable. But showing annualized goals or even like 3-year, 5-year, long-term goals are oftentimes way too big for people to bridge the gap when they're stuck or stalled out from now until 1 year in the future. Too much is susceptible to change.
Break it into chunks. Yeah. So everybody who hears me, they hear me say this. So we always celebrate touchdowns. When I turn on Sports Center, I see slam dunks and I see touchdowns.
Yeah.
But it took blocking and tackling, the blocking and tackling to get to that point. So you have to celebrate the fundamentals, the daily activities, which lead to the lagging indicator, which are the contracts.
Yeah.
So if you focus on that and you celebrate that, and to me, the closing is just a byproduct. We're going to work. That's what we're here for. That's what we get paid the money to do.
Yeah, that's right.
The hard part is this.
Yeah. The actual job itself is working out. It is going to practice. That's the job.
Yeah.
Right. But we think that oftentimes the job is playing the game.
That's not.
The game comes easy when you put in the practice.
Everybody wants to lose weight, but nobody wants to go to the gym.
Yeah.
You got to go to the gym and then you lose weight. And so that's what the activities are. It's just going to the gym every day.
And the last thing I think that we look at in re-energizing a team, if you're auditing your business or your department or your team and thinking about how do I re-engage and how do I build energy in the company, we need to make recognition public.
Yes.
We need to have small goals that then are accomplished, that are recognized and rewarded. We need to give a sales team credit for accomplishing small wins so that they become more engaged through that feedback response loop in order to cause people to want to take more action in the future. And so some things I think that we can do when we're recognizing success and really teaching the behavior that we seek is I like stupid, ridiculous, like ways to do recognition rather than the like serious ways to do it.
Right.
Because I actually think that the like ridiculous like punny rewards are
more
better
memorable.
and they're more memorable. They
Yeah.
stick. They create a culture of like bragging rights that is also not damaging to the culture. So I think that you have trophies, titles, and unique perks as ways to reward people that doesn't even have to be monetary, and also simultaneously benefits the culture. So some like things that I've seen done or that we've done are we've had like a mic drop award where we have a trophy with a mic on it, and that's the person who talked to the most amount of people that month.
Nice.
The Savannah Bananas, a minor league baseball team in Savannah, Georgia, does an amazing job of this as well. They have like a banana trophy, I think, that they give out. We've done titles as well, but they have to be like ridiculous titles for someone to win. And then recently we've done perks that it's like I was an ISA. If whoever won a contest, I would be an ISA for half a day for them.
Nice.
Or if we got 700 Google reviews or whatever, take the team paintballing, and they could all shoot me with or at least have one shot on goal. Right? How do you create those perks and build them in to where they are reciprocal for energy and for culture, and they also get you progress and engagement and outcome?
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect, man. I do I don't do all those things. The one thing that I do is I try to share social media.
Yeah, that's good too. Yeah, absolutely.
And just kind of let them know Agent of the Month and use that for social media, then their friends and their family, and it actually wakes up their sphere. It's a little piece of marketing propaganda that they can put out. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to foster that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that one of because a lot of what we talk about on the show are things that either like we are encountering in our business, either like topically because they're real in the moment, or that we're experiencing with other business owners, other agents, because they're topical in their business. And at the time of recording, we're basically October of 2021, and in real estate sales, what we see in our market is that about the next 4 months of desert. Yeah. It is the winter desert for 4 months. And that's when your agents are at the greatest flight risk. They're most likely to leave the company during this desert of 4 months in October through February because momentum gets stalled out. And when momentum stalls out, what happens is people see it instead as a problem. And so they look around and they try to solve a problem, and they point fingers at what the problem is. And 99% of the times we point fingers at the wrong problem. Right. Because we discount the human capital effect of running a business. And so engagement to me is the number one way to keep people plugged in and consistent. But engagement takes trust. And so I share the example with you guys all before we got on, was that this week our like senior agents were not as engaged as they typically are from a consistency of showing up and being in the office. Now their results were great, but the minor tweak habit of them not showing up in the office, I know, is an early stage disengagement. It's a leading indicator. It'll show up in 2 months. That's right. That's right. And so I know that it's something that I need to get out in front of. Yes. And the good news is that I also know that they're capable of anything they set their mind to from an accomplishment standpoint. And so my approach to it is that I don't have a problem that needs to be fixed. I have I need to get them re-engaged from a best practices standpoint. And listen, I used to care when if people showed up 5 days a week, every week, and hammered out the work in a consistent manner. I'm less regimented about that part now. However, you do have to at least show up and do the right things. Otherwise, you just don't get the right outcomes sooner or later. And so in a group text, I sent a group message basically that said, love you, miss you. every one of them responded back as to like where they were or what they were doing, because they know that there are three things true about that. That is, yes, I love them. Yes, I miss you. Like, it would be way more fun if you were here. My job is more enjoyable when people I enjoy working with show up.
Right.
And because we don't have to work hard the entire day, like we can still have fun.
Yeah.
And then they also know that I'm paying attention and that I want to know where they are, not because I care what they're doing or where they are, but because I care about them and their goals and their results.
Right.
And that's the first step in the goals and the results, is the showing up part.
Right.
And so, hey, I noticed none of y'all are here today. I miss you and I love you, and show up.
Right.
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 Or don't. Like, that's okay. Just have a great reason to not show up.
Right.
Because that's okay too. Have leverage, have leisure, or be all in.
Results.
That's right.